everyone. How you doing out there? Gil here at Gray Man Prepping. All right, so now we're working on some more of the book here, starting with chapter 5. But before I do that, I want to do a little recap here quick for those that haven't caught anything so far so they know what's going on and you're not totally lost. The book we're doing here is Against the Wind, the saga begins. And I need to go back here and trying to get this to show up here. There we go, on my side here. Where ground rules. Okay, there we go. Let me bring this up. Okay, ground rules. This is one of the things laid out in the very beginning of the book, things you need to understand about this. Actually, we're going to go up before this. Introduction. The world has survived many disasters over its existence. Some have been called extinction events, others just cataclysmic. In the theory of the multiverse, these events can cause, and some believe they have caused, split timelines or creating of alternate dimensions or universes. Sometimes these events cause a single split, other times multiple splits. Some believe that people's visions are glimpses of these other timelines. Others believe that somehow novelists, cartoonists, and such like that, somehow tap into these timelines for inspirations for their stories. And some believe that some stories are a history of certain events from other timelines. Some people, including a few scientists, believe we might one day be able to travel between timelines. However, that implication of that theory gives me headaches, and the conversation on that would take years and volumes enough to fill several libraries. It is enough to say that the Against the Wind saga story takes place in such a timeline split / alternate universe. Ground rules to understand things. For most of us, if we were to shift between our current timeline and the Against the Wind saga timeline, we would not notice many differences, if any. Others would spot differences that would stand out like Rudolph's green nose. With this in mind, remember that some businesses and organizations may have different names or responsibilities. Sorry, I froze again. Others would have different. So with this in mind, remember that some organizations and businesses might have different names, responsibilities, or organizational structures. Some persons may I forgot to put that in there. There we go. Maybe, I missed this the last time, may be born years or decades before or after they are born here. Some die younger, while some live much longer. They may marry different people or the same, as we know in our timeline. Whatever the reason, don't get mired and think that things have to happen the way they are here in this timeline. The same single word can inspire one person or demoralize another. Warning, special powers may or may not exist in different timelines. So basically, it's sort of like the Marvel or the DC universes where they got, different things going on. And different ones. So let's get back up here to the current chapter here. Come on. There it goes. Stage. There we go. All right. The story so far, the main character, Walt Rogers. Actually, let me make me big and small for a second. Main character Walt Rogers has gone from inheriting his uncle's multi-thousand acre ranch to being nominated to replace the current sheriff by the current sheriff, who's retiring, who retired. He on his ranch, he has helped out the Future Farmers of American 4-H clubs students by letting them come out to his ranch and work with the rescue horses that he and the ranch's veterinarian have been, rescuing. One of the 4-H members to come out was Susan Ahern, who at the time was 17 years old, senior, and now it's been a couple of years. She is now 18 years old, and she is very much in love with Walt. Walt's in love with her, but they can't do anything about it because of all the problems going on. First, it was him getting elected. Because she was still in high school when he got elected, even though she had turned 18 for the last half of her senior year. So she was a legal adult, but because she was still in high school, they didn't want it to look. He's only 2 years older than her. Not that big of a deal. But the one person running for sheriff is a scumbag, even though he's a county supervisor, and he would use that against both of them to make Walt lose. But Walt won, and that happened. One of the things happened along the way. Walt became good friends with Special Agent in Charge Chris Davies of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Special Operations team. And over the time, Chris decided that he wanted to live somewhere else other than Boise. So he bought some land up north in Adams in Council, Idaho, where this is taking place, and has become great friends with Walt. And members of Walt's older brother Michael got married out at the ranch, and but prior to getting married, there was they discovered an asteroid that was going to be passing very, very, very close to the Earth. At the first time, they didn't know whether it was going to hit the Earth, hit the moon, pass between them, whatever. And so they've been planning for about a year on getting ready for it, keeping it secret from the public until they released the information about it. They had revitalized a bunch of the abandoned towns and stuff in the Midwest, and built other temporary towns to relocate people from the coastlines inland so they wouldn't get hurt, because as time along they were able to figure out where the asteroid was going to go, and it was going to pass between the Earth and the moon. And it had at first they thought it had an iron core, but it turns out it has a even heavier metal core, and because that heavier metals had a greater gravitational pull, and it then affected. It was going to severely affect the tides on Earth and the magma, and cause all sorts of problems. So they were evacuating people into the more center areas of the country, away from the shorelines. All right, so where this tape picks up with is, as the title here says, let's see, that make it bigger? That makes it bigger. All right. Is Chapter 5, The Leak. And I so wanted to play the music from The Mandalorian here, like they do in the beginning of it when they say what the title is. But that would have been a copyright strike. Oh, that would have been a copyright strike. And Lee Argent's in the house. How you doing? So that's what's going on today. So far in the story. And yes, this for a disaster story, this picks up a couple years before the disaster. And I had worked with another author. I'm working on another book series with another author. And he said, one of the things he hates is not developing enough backstory for an action adventure. You can be diving in like this, but there's so much information going on leading up to it that's why we have 5 chapters before everybody finds out about what's going on. All right, so let's get at this here. Sarah! Came her father's voice loudly from the basement. Come down here right now. Uh-oh, Sarah's in trouble, her brother Timmy said softly. Sarah looked at Timmy, expecting an impish grin, but his head was was looking down at his school project that was due Monday. And his face had a look that was very serious. Then she looked across the dining room table at her mother at the kitchen sink. This was the moment they both knew would come, but hoped that it wouldn't happen for a while longer. As Sarah saved the spreadsheet for her online college course and closed the laptop, her mother stopped working on the food that she was getting ready to can and wiped her hands on her apron. As she headed towards the basement door, Sarah pushed back the chair she was sitting in and stood slowly. She had rehearsed this many times in her mind. Rehearsed this in her mind many times, what she was going to say when her father found all the supplies that she had stashed in the basement. Generally, he didn't go into that section of the basement, and she and her mother felt it would be safe from him finding it out until the event happened. But her father had been talking about cleaning up the basement and getting rid of some of the old junk down there. She hoped he wouldn't start for a couple more weeks. Her mother waited at the door for Sarah to go through first and followed her downstairs. The stairwell had been finished off with sheetrock. Sorry, I forgot to put something in there. Come on, there we go. Sheetrock walls. Okay. That explains a little bit better. With sheetrock walls and paint that matched the kitchen. And the stairs themselves have been painted safety yellow with non-slip black grit tape across the width of each across the width in 3 1-inch rows. Her father had always been one who, as her mother said, had rose-colored glasses about the future, and preparing for the worst was something he didn't believe in. Yet there were times he became convinced that an ounce of prevention was worth a pound of cure. Slips were one of those things. He had read some statistics that explained that slips and trips and falls were the biggest threat to household finances. So he painted the stairs and put the grit tape on them, not so much as for himself, but for her mother. He also put grip tape in front of the back porch stairs and anti-slip details in the bathroom tubs and showers. He called it cheap insurance. When she got to the bottom of the stairs and turned the corner and headed to the section where her father was and took a deep breath. That was a section of the basement that was set aside for her mother's canning and the camping equipment. Most of the family's camping equipment was not used anymore since they had bought a fifth wheel RV trailer. While some of the gear had moved into the trailer, most of it was still down here in the basement. Most of it Sarah used for camping and hiking with the venture crew, but some things like the 8-person tent and the folding table had not been used in several years. It was in this area that Sarah had been stockpiling several cases of canned food, toilet paper, buckets of wheat, 50-pound bags of rice, sugar, and other emergency supplies such as water filters, FRS radios, hand crank flashlights, and lanterns. She just about killed off her college savings account on this. She told her mother what she was doing and why. At first, her mother was more than skeptical about it until she had shown the pictures she had taken at Walt's office at the sheriff's department. She had been there after the new year to get the venture crew signed up for the search and rescue program, and he had left her alone in his office for about 15 minutes. She got rather bored sitting there, so she started looking around and found documents laying out. I need to fix this up. Laying out on his desk about something called the End of October event. She glanced at him and couldn't believe what she was reading. After a couple of minutes, she knew this was very important information and that Walt wasn't supposed to talk about it with anyone not approved to know. Yet she got the feeling he wanted her to know about it. He'd left it out with her when he left. He'd left it out with her in the room alone for quite some time and guessed that she would get bored and read it. Not knowing what else to do, she quickly took out her smartphone and took pictures of everything she could about the End of October event, and to put everything back the way it was and hope that she got it all right. A couple minutes later, Walt came back into the room and said he had to go see Special Agent Davies down in Boise. They could finish the paperwork for the venture crew later. After she got home, she transferred the photos to her computer and converted them to PDFs and spent the rest of the day reading and rereading the documents. The next day, she talked to her mother about the supplies they had and how long they would last. It was a week later she finally shared some of the pages with her mother to convince her to let her buy and store extra food and supplies in the basement. Besides the money from her college savings account, Sarah had spent most of the money she had earned working at Ace Hardware on the supplies for her family. Now she and her mother were going to have to confront her father about all the supplies in the basement. As she entered the back room in the basement where the supplies were, she saw her father holding a box containing one of the water filters. He kept reading the information in the box, ignoring her as he did when he was upset and trying to formulate his response. When he looked up, she saw the surprise on his face when he saw his wife there as well. Carol, you knew about this? He asked, sounding suddenly hurt. Of course, Earl. I helped her plan out what to get, she said with a smile that really confused him. We were trying to get everything done as a surprise. That really threw him off track. A surprise. I need to change that word, or capitalize that word. He started. For what? Carol turned to Sarah. Your turn. Sarah stepped up to her father and gently took the box from his hands and set it back on the pile of supplies. Dad, I have something upstairs to show you. I need you not to ask any questions until you have read it completely. Promise? She had only asked her dad 3 other times to promise something. Earl looked at his daughter's apprehensive face and saw something he didn't like: fear. He was surprised at how much it hurt to see see fear in his daughter's eyes. I promise, he choked out and hugged her quickly. When he released her, Sarah turned and led them back upstairs to the dining room to her laptop. Once there, she opened her laptop, logged back into it, and then went to a hidden folder and clicked on the PDF file. When the window asking for the password came up, she entered it. When the file opened, she slid from the chair and indicated with her hand for her father to sit. Remember, you have to read the entire file before you say anything. Earl nodded and sat down. He adjusted the screen and began reading. After several minutes, he looked up with puzzled expressions and said, "Paper and pencil," and went back to reading. Carol grabbed a notebook and a pencil from the breakfast bar and handed it to Earl. He began making notations and scrolled back and forth over the cryptic file. Sarah quietly sat down across the table while Carol continued to slowly pace behind him. About 10 minutes later, he took a huge breath and let out a long whistle and set the pencil down, leaned back in his chair. Sarah sat forward and started to talk when Earl cut her off. "Where and how did you get this, and how accurate is it?" he asked cautiously. "I got them from Walt's desk." "Walt?" Earl asked with a bit of confusion on her face. "The sheriff," Carol interjected when Sarah hesitated. "The sheriff?" Walt exclaimed. "What were you doing going through the sheriff's desk?" Sarah took a deep breath and explained why and what happened that day. Her voice trailed off when she said Walt had to leave to meet Special Agent Davies, and she just looked down at the table. "What happened then?" her father asked with great concern in his voice. She looked up, biting her lip closed for several seconds, obviously not sure how to tell her father, or if she really wanted to tell him just yet. "Go on," her mother urged. "Well, after he said he had to go and that we would work on the venture crew paperwork later, he stopped and stared at the papers on his desk for several seconds. I really felt he knew that I had read them and was going to get mad at me." She stopped and took a quivering breath. "Then he gathered them up and put them in the safe and locked it. Then when he turned around, I stepped up to him and looked him square in the eyes. I asked him if I could go with him." Sarah stopped with her face still looking down. She raised her eyes to catch a peek at her father's face. "You what?" was all he was able to say in disbelief. "I asked him if I could go with him to meet Special Agent Davies." "But you got in his face to do it," Earl exclaimed. Sarah let a small smile creep across her face. "Yeah, I kind of do that a lot with Walt." Earl stared at his daughter in disbelief for a few seconds, then asked, Then what happened?" Well, his response was not either of the two I expected. She took another deep breath before continuing. "He grabbed me," she paused and swallowed hard, "and pulled me tight to him in a deep hug and whispered in my ear, 'Knowledge is a dangerous burden. You have to bear it well to protect those you care about.'" Sarah was blushing as she related her life to her father. When he finally eased the hug and held me at arm's length and stared at me. "And?" I nodded and said I understand, but I had one real question though. And then I asked them, "When are you going to ask me out on a real date?" "A real date? What have you two been doing?" He started to get angry. "Talking, behaving ourselves, acting like we were not interested in each other so he could win the election and be a good sheriff to get the supplies needed for the county. She sat back quickly and pouted. It really sucks taking the higher road. Earl stared in surprise at his daughter's concern for the appearance for the sheriff. Carol came up behind Sarah and put her hands on Sarah's shoulders and patted her. So what did he say about a real date? Sarah swallowed hard again before continuing. Well, he pulled me close to him again and said, soon, real soon, I hope. And then he gave me our first kiss. She choked as tears came flowing to her eyes. We love each other, but we can't do anything about it. We have to keep it a secret so he can do his job protecting everyone in the county without Marston and others causing trouble. She looked up at her father. Dad, I'm afraid we won't ever be together if this thing is as bad as it looks. It looks serious, but it's not the end of the world bad, her father said, trying to comfort her daughter. But it is worse than these reports say. I've overheard Walt and others talking, Dad. It's real bad. And it's going to happen sooner than these old reports say. Now they're calling it the mid-October event. So what exactly is this mid-October event anyways? Earl demanded. I can't say. National security non-disclosure thing. Well, now we'll just have to talk to Mom, Dad! Sarah's brother Mick screamed from the family room where he was watching TV. Come here, quick! They all ran through the dining room and into the living room and into the family room. As they entered the room, they saw the flashing red banner on the TV saying breaking emergency news, and heard the announcer saying, once again, sources at NASA have confirmed that a massive asteroid is headed towards Earth, and it's not clear whether or not it will impact Earth or miss it. Scientists are trying to calculate the exact path of the asteroid, but there are unknown problems in doing so. What our sources do know is that it'll arrive here about mid-October. Sarah said, that's the mid-October event. Earl grabbed Sarah's arm and turned her around to face him. What else do you know? What do we need to get? Come on, Sarah. The story's broken. It's out in the open. You need to tell us everything. Walt and Chris, Special Agent Davies, have been helping the county get a whole lot of supplies warehoused at several points around the county. Walt has been getting even more out at the ranch. Sarah took a breath. Walt has been storing 10 years worth of food supply for his family at the ranch. We need more gasoline, diesel fuel, propane tanks, medicine, clothing, lots and lots of food. She looked hard at her parents. Now, she said loudly. She broke free of her father's grasp and ran back to the kitchen. Right now. As she ran, she pulled her phone from her pocket and dialed. In the kitchen, she grabbed her car keys and wallets and said to her parents, I'm going to the propane store to get a tank trailer. Dad, go to the auto parts store and get all the gas cans you can and fill them. Mom, get more canned food now, and cereal and pasta and rice, all you can. Right, Earl said as he grabbed his keys from the hook by the back door. Okay, Carol agreed, then hollered back to the family room. Kids, let's go. No, Sarah stopped her. Then the phone was answered. Walt, hi. Did you see the news? Yeah, we're heading out to get more supplies. I just need to say I love you. Then screw the dating. Let's get married. As she listened to Walt's response, she looked up at her dad, whose eyes right. He's about ready to have a stroke. We'll wait a while longer, but you agreed, so we're engaged now. I'll call you later after we get back from shopping. Love you, babe. Bye. She hung up the phone and slipped it back in her pocket while she danced in place, saying, yes, 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 yes. Then she looked at her parents. Dad, go. Mom, take Mick. Amber can watch the others. Let's go. She turned and went out the back door to her Suburban with her dad right behind her. We'll talk when we get back, Earl said, half with pride of the woman his little girl had become and half in fear of the woman she had become. Carol was giving instructions to Amber as Mick pulled on his boots, and they too came out of the back door and headed to her year-old Ford Expedition. It was an hour and a half later when everyone was back at the Ahern household. Sarah had gotten a trailer with an 800-gallon tank on it that would supply their RV for at least 2 years if they were very careful in using the sun ovens and campfires whenever they could. Hang on, I need to add something to that. Could. For cooking. Showers would be cold in the summer and barely warm in the winter. Earl had hit both auto parts stores and the hardware store before anyone else had thought to get extra cans. He had 15 5-gallon cans and 8 3-gallon plastic cans. Then he stopped at the Tractor Supply and got a 250-gallon tank, a 250-gallon bed tank for his Ford F-550 crew cab. He filled all but 2 of the 5-gallon cans and all of the 3-gallon cans with gas. The other 2 5-gallon cans and the bed tank he filled with diesel. Sarah's Suburban and the Jeep Wrangler ran on gasoline, while the F-550 and the Expedition were diesel. He had just finished fueling when Bob came running out of the station and changed the prices, almost triple what they were. Earl shook his head and headed home. Carol was the last one home. She and Mick had 3 carts filled and were checking out when a lot of others flooded into the store. Danny Rourke pulled in and stopped next to him. She asked where Sarah was. Then if they were members of the co-op. When Carol said no, Danny said to follow her over there. They could use her membership to load up. Then, with Danny's help, they filled both vehicles past their maximum weight capacities and slowly drove to the Ahern's home. They scraped bottom as they pulled off the street into the long driveway that ran alongside the house to the back where the 3-car garage was, and the RV carport next to it. Carol pulled in one of the garage bays, and Danny pulled around by the back door. Sarah bounded out of the back door and hugged Danny as soon as she was out of the old Forest Service truck. What are you doing here? Well, my dad was on his way home with the crew trailer when the news broke and swung by the co-op. He loaded it and his truck to the max and called for me to get a few more things. That's when I ran into your mom at the market. They just come out and the place was turning to a zoo quickly. So I had her follow me over to the co-op, and we loaded up. Thank you, Danny, Earl said as he held out his hand. Sure thing, Mr. Ahern, Danny said, and then asked boldly, now I need a favor. What? Carol spoke as she and Mick came over from the garage. Well, when Dad heard the news, he called Mr. Young and told him to lock up quickly before he got looted, so he did. She paused and gave Sarah a sideways glance. that between the two of them was more than a wink, wink, nudge, nudge signal. He wanted some help relocating certain items tonight, and I was hoping you could help. We'd be glad to help, Earl said, but first let's get your truck unloaded. You can come back and get your supplies tomorrow. Okay, Danny. Okay, Danny said with a smile. Then loaded the vehicles and headed over to Young Sporting Goods. When they got there, the front was boarded up, so they drove around back. Danny's father, Jerry, and his ex-military deuce and a half truck were backed up to the loading dock, and several of the venture crew were standing guard with shotguns and some 10 million 10 million candle power lights. Randy was there directing other crew members who were just arriving where to park. He had all vehicles form two roadblocks, one on each side of the deuce and a half, with their headlights facing away from it so that they could illuminate anyone who approached. While they were loading the truck, Sarah called. Excuse me, my daughter just texted me. Okay, she got the text I sent her earlier. All right, where was while they were loading the truck, Sarah called Walt to let him know what was going on. 5 minutes later, two pickup trucks slowly pulled around the side of the building to the back of the around to the okay, this is a little confusing. I got it. To the back where they were, comma, and a comma there. That sounds much better. This is proofreading. That's why you fix things. The two pickups slowly pulled around the side of the building to the back where they were with their lights off. The parking lot lights still covered the trucks with light, and Sarah thought she recognized one of them from high school. The pickups stopped as soon as they were out of the light from the parking lot lights. Their panicked conversation couldn't quite be made out, but it was obvious they thought no one would be here, and they didn't know what to do. Randy came around from the other side of the deuce and a half and saw the pickups. Lights, he yelled, and turned on the portable searchlight he was carrying. When all the vehicle lights came on as well, and several 10 million candle power portable searchlights, it was as if the two trucks were sitting in the noonday sun. Marcus stepped out the back of his store and yelled, "Store's closed. Get off my property. You're trespassing." "We just need to get supplies," came the reply from the pickup that Sarah did not recognize. "Just let us get what we want and no one will get hurt." Suddenly, Sarah recognized whom the one pickup belonged to. "Jimmy Hardy," she yelled. "You best be getting out of here before my fiance gets here." She felt all fuzzy and all warm and fuzzy, referring to Walt as her fiance. "Yeah, who's that?" came Jimmy's surprised and nervous reply. Sarah chuckled to herself and shouted back, "Walt Rogers, you know, the sheriff." "Oh shit, what the heck? Damn it!" And a few other exclamations came from the group. Hang on, I need to add a word. After a couple of seconds, Jimmy shouted back, "I don't believe you. News like that gets around. We just got engaged a couple hours ago, so this isn't general knowledge." Sarah smiled as she remembered some Hey, Jimmy, do you remember what he said to you in front of the school last year? The clock is still ticking and has several years left on it. Oh, shit. I'm out of here, Jimmy practically screamed in panic as he started his truck to back up. Just as he put it in gear, flashing red and blue lights and bright headlights appeared behind him, and a siren sounded. That that was followed by a PA horn saying, "Turn off your engine, step out of the vehicle." Another set of red and blue lights pulled up behind and another set of red and blue lights pulled up behind the other pickup. Humvee pulled around the deuce and a half with its light bar flashing and stopped next to Sarah's Suburban. Walt looked over and said, no, Sarah looked over at Walt and said, "It's Jimmy Hardy and some of his friends." "Hey, Jimmy," Walt said over his PA. "Before you do something stupid, you should know there are about 15 shotguns aimed at you and your friends." "Don't shoot," Jimmy cried out. "I give up." "Me too," said another. Ditto from the third person in Jimmy's truck. "This is bullshit," said the other driver as he started his truck, but before he could put it in gear, Jason Redhawk's shotgun butt came through the window and knocked him out. Half an hour later, Jason and Gary had transported the 5 would-be thieves to jail, and the venture vehicles. I need to put venture crew in there. Put the word crew. The venture crew vehicles and Jerry Rourke's truck and Jerry Rourke's deuce and a half truck were loaded. Marcus Young had Sarah and Danny and Randy load several crates and smaller cases into Sarah's Suburban and fill out some paperwork. When they were ready to go, scroll up, Sarah and Danny saw Earl talking to Walt off to the side where no one could hear them. Marcus had locked up his store, and everyone was getting ready to head over to the Rourke's home. $5 they're talking about you, Danny said. $10 says you're right, Sarah replied. Let's move out, Jerry shouted. Hang on, I'm going to wipe my eyes here. With the house, the temperatures as cold as they are here, the house gets really dry, and my eyes start to water and gunk up. Even though I got I got a pot of water on the stove boiling away, adding moisture back, and I got several other devices around adding moisture back. It's only the humidity is only 29 degrees. I need to get it back up to 35 so my eyes will stop watering and gunking up. All right. Who else came? No, someone else came in. Whoever you up, and they went out. Yeah, that quick. All right. The trip to the Rourke's house had been uneventful. Danny and Randy had driven out first and pulled over after 6 and 8 respect. Hang on, I need to change that around. I hope that we pulled over respectively after 6 and 8 blocks, and parked with lights and motor off. After the caravan passed, they waited to see if anyone was following. When the caravan had gone 12 blocks and turned left, they started up again and turned left where they were at and sped to catch up to the caravan. Earl and Sarah were rear guard as they turned left with the caravan until the caravan turned right. Then they blocked the road until Danny and Randy caught up with them. Then all four vehicles sped up until they had just about caught up to the caravan. When they were 4 blocks behind, Danny and Randy held their distance, and Earl and Sarah closed the distance. Until they were 2 blocks behind. Jerry Rourke had what appeared to be a standard cinder block barn style building for storing and working on farm equipment. But that was all that was standard about it. Fort Rourke, as the venture crew called it, the walls were made of 8-inch wide cinder blocks filled with concrete. A wall of 12-inch flat cast concrete lined the inside. The first floor was 15 feet high for working on farm equipment, and above that was the loft, where the venture crew met for meetings. It was here they were going to store the items from the sporting goods store until it was safe to return them to the store. Walt had left a young sporting goods store as if he was heading back to the office, but after several blocks, he turned and sped ahead on a different route to the Rourke's home. Getting there about 5 minutes ahead of the caravan, he did a quick search patrol of the area to make sure that no one was waiting to ambush them for the items from the store. Then he parked about a half block past the driveway facing it. He stayed there while everyone unloaded and secured the items secured the items and the building. Then he waited another 15 minutes after everyone had left to make sure that no one was coming before returning to his office. All right. Someone else just came in. Welcome. All right, now the story changes a little bit. The gunnery sergeant. Kathy Dyer was having a great day as she rode her Harley-Davidson Road King back to base housing at Camp Pendleton. She was getting out of the Marines in 2 days and was on terminal leave. She had just landed a job with a high-end security company doing executive family protection. The client was the Donaldson family. The father was the senior vice president for a major oil company and was going to relocate to Northern California to be closer to corporate headquarters at the end of the year. 2 members of the current team did not want to relocate with them and had asked to be replaced. Since Kathy was just getting out of the Marines and had no ties to the area, she was seen as the perfect fit. The mother was a stay-at-home mom who was involved in community service groups. They had twin 17-year-old daughters and a 15-year-old son. The 2 members of the security team that were staying on lived in the gatehouse. Kathy would have one of the rooms above the 6-car garage that would be the female and would be the only female in the 4-person team assigned to the family. So far, the fourth position. The fourth position had not yet. No, maybe I'll just leave it. Oh, sorry, let me change it back. The 4th person had not been hired yet. Yeah, the 4th person had not been hired yet. The company account representative, Brian Allen, was standing with the client talking to them when she arrived at the Donaldson's home for an interview with the family. She surprised everybody when riding up on her Road King. The father was lean and sharp and hard to read. Kathy guessed that if he had been in the military, he had to have been an officer. The mother was easier to read. She gave Kathy a disapproving look as she parked the Harley. Then there were the twins, Mary and Jane. They fell in love with, hang on, let me change that from her to Kathy. Let's see. Okay, the autocorrect's not working here. Fell in love with Kathy as soon as she rode up on the Harley. They immediately ran to her and started pestering her to take them out for a ride on it. Their parents weren't so sure about Kathy until she told the twins that they would have to earn the privilege from both her and her parents, and only if her parents agreed to it first. Kathy walked over to where the hang on, I just think I missed something here. Nope, I didn't make a mistake. I was just checking something that's going to happen here later on. All right. Kathy walked over to where the account representative and client stood and came to attention. I understand you're getting out of the Corps, Mr. Donaldson stated, more than asked. I'm Joseph Donaldson. This is my wife, Linda. Master Gunnery Sergeant Dyer, 4th Recon, on terminal leave for the next 2 days, Kathy said. Mr. Donaldson stiffened when she gave her rank. You appear to be a bit young for a Master Gunnery Sergeant. How old are you? 32, sir. I enlisted in the Young Marines at 8 and at 14 reached the rank of Sergeant Major. Then I enlisted in junior ROTC for 2.5 years. When I then enlisted in the Corps at 16 and a half with a special waiver after I graduated early from high school. My father was a first sergeant. I entered boot camp a lance corporal and came out as a corporal. Received a combat meritorious promotion to sergeant my first week in the box. 10 months TSI, still 17. Then a year later, another combat meritorious promotion to staff sergeant. I received 3 more meritorious I'm mispronouncing it, sorry, promotions, and the CMH and made Master Gunnery Sergeant 6 years ago. Mr. Donaldson smiled wryly. So you're that Dyer. Let's go inside. Kathy stiffened ever so slightly at the comment, not knowing what to expect now. As they went inside the mansion, like home, to conduct the interview, Kathy's eyes started about, as she was in awe by the furnishings of it. She had never seen the likes of them in person. Yes, she had watched those Lives of Rich and Famous TV shows, but never expected to be in one of those type homes. The Donaldsons apologized for the fact that Jake, the 15-year-old, was not there. They explained that he was off riding his ATV with some friends and was running late again. It was about 5 minutes into the interview that Jake showed up and came tromping into the room, tracking mud everywhere he went. Kathy bit her lip when he replied snippety to his mother's inquiry as to why he was late. But the topper was when he slapped Kathy's fanny as he walked by. Kathy would not take that from anyone, let alone a teenage boy. She hooked his arm, spun him around, and face planted him on the floor. The look on his mother's face told her that she had lost the job. So keeping Jake pinned to the floor, Kathy really laid into him with a Marine Corps style lecture and laid out some rules for him that he would have to follow around her. First rule, he would never, ever disrespect his parents in any way, including being late, tracking dirt wet or dry into the house, and never, ever talk that way to his mother again. Second rule, he would respect women as being on a pedestal, not a piece of meat. Third rule, if he ever touched her butt again, he would break every bone in that hand, pull his pants down, and spank his bare butt in front of God and everybody. Fourth rule, there would always be more rules to learn. When she picked him up off the floor and told him to go back and get himself cleaned up and then clean the floor, when she looked at the parents, she saw two different reactions. The mother was holding her hands over her mouth and her eyes were saying, "How could you do that to my baby?" The father had a smile that went from ear to ear. Then she glanced at the twins who were giving her two thumbs up each. The company's account rep, Brian, was starting to apologize when the father held up his hand to him as he faced Kathy. "You're hired." "What?" protested Jake. He said, "I'm hired. That means you got some cleaning up to do. Now!" Kathy ordered. Jake looked back and forth between his parents and the new pain in his life several times. Then he slumped his shoulders and sulked off to do as he was told. Mr. Donaldson seemed to smile bigger. Let's talk in the den. Then said to Brian, "Get the papers ready." They left Brian and the twins and went into another room that was an executive's man cave. He sat on the edge of the desk and took his wife's hands. "Linda and I have been having trouble with Jake, and he's not responding to anything we've tried. But you're the pacifier. You put him in his place and did it without anger in your voice, even though I knew you were pissed. That seemed to make the biggest impact on him. His eyes told me all I needed to see." He paused and sucked in and chewed on his lip as if he were thinking something he had not considered before. "Gunny, when the girls were 8, I enrolled them in the Young Marines. 2 years ago, they dropped out because they wanted some other high school activities. Their discipline has slipped. I want you to be my drill sergeant in charge of the kids." "2 questions," Kathy replied, a bit confused. "1, pacifier? And 2, do you mean boot camp time for them?" Mr. Donaldson smiled and let go of his wife's hands and walked over to the cabinet that was full of DVDs and opened it. Drawing his fingers across the DVDs, he scanned them until he found the one he was looking for and pulled it out. He walked over to Kathy and handed it to her. 1, the pacifier. 2, not quite boot camp, but training. PT, survival tactics, situational awareness. Help them to protect themselves in general and not be spoiled brats. Do you mean just hand-to-hand combat, or does that include weapons too? I don't want to start teaching something you don't care for them to learn. Mr. Donaldson smiled and walked over to another cabinet and slid his hand along the edge until he found a certain spot, then grabbed it tight and pulled. The cabinet swung out to reveal another cabinet behind it. This new cabinet was loaded with all sorts of weapons, everything from knives to bows to pistols to rifles and shotguns. He turned and smiled. "Everything here is okay." Hang on, let me update that. Okay to teach. Okay to TEACH. Kathy nodded and said, "Where can I watch this?" holding up the DVD. The girls will show you, and if you want, they can watch it with you. It's been a while since they've seen it. Sounds great, Mr. Donaldson, sir, Kathy said as she held out her hand. Shaking her hand, the father said, Master Gunny Sergeant Dyer, we're going to have a different relationship than the rest of the security team, so call me Major. Reacting instinctively, Kathy snapped to attention and saluted sharply. Yes, sir, Major, sir. All right, hang on. I'll be right back. Someone's at the door. Okay, I was just joined by my mini-me, my grandson, who's number three in order. All right. All right. Let me check something here where we're at here on it. Okay. uh, Kathy snapped to attention and saluted sharply. Yes, sir, Major, sir. The Major smiled and returned the salute. Now get to it, Gunny, while Mr. Allen and I take care of the paperwork. Kathy left the room and found the girls in the kitchen. They bombarded her with more questions. She held up her hand to quiet them, gave them a quick rundown on what was to come. And they both were I need to rework this sentence here. I'm going to change up how it goes because the personalities have changed somewhat from what they were here. Delete. That's smile. There we go. Now it's aligns better with their future personalities. All right. Make sure reading that again. Okay. Then gave them a quick rundown on what was to come. And Jane bounced. What was to come? I need to change this a little bit. Take the and out and make it two separate sentences. Jane bounced around with joy, and Mary straightened and smiled. They took her to a room that was a private theater with 20 ultra plush reclining chairs and played the DVD for her. About 10 minutes into the movie, Jake came in and told Kathy everything was cleaned. The twins quickly rattled off all the things that Gunny was going to teach them. That seemed to pique Jake's interest. Then one of the twins added, yeah, but we have to earn the special stuff. What specials? What stuff? Jake's, yeah. Special stuff? Jake inquired. Marines weapon training. I want to change it to, no, I'll leave it with Jane saying it. Marine weapons training, Jane smiled with a serpentine smile. After the movie, Kathy knew what the major meant by the pacifier. The girl showed her the room over the garage where she'd be staying. Then she said goodbye to them and got on her Harley to head back to base housing to pick up her gear when Mary ran back over to her. Master Gunnery Sergeant, I want to apologize to you. Mary said, looking down. For what? Mary asked, not recalling anything that Mary had done that warranted an apology. For not staying in the Young Marines and living up to my potential, Mary said with a slight quiver in her voice, and pushed her ultra black hair over her ears. What rank did you earn? First Sergeant. Mary looked down again. I would have had Master Gunnery Sergeant if I'd stayed in 6 more months. A lot don't even make First Sergeant, Kathy said, putting her hand on Mary's shoulder. Master Gunnery Sergeant, can you come with me tomorrow to help me get back in the Young Marines? I guess I can, but why do you need me? I want them to see that I'm going to take the 9 months very seriously, and that you're going to work me here at home and not going to cut me any slack. Mary took a breath. I want to be ready when I enlist after I graduate. When did you decide you wanted to enlist? I've been thinking about it for a couple of months. You showing up made me realize that's what I wanted. What MOS are you looking at? Sniper assigned to 4Con. Hopefully the fourth 4Con. My dad's unit. The major was 4th 4Con, Kathy asked. Come on, get over here. There we go. Even though she had 2 days until she was officially out of the Corps, she was on terminal leave, which meant that she did not have to report for any type of duty and could stay wherever she wanted. Wherever she wanted. Wherever she wanted. Come on, get in there. As long as the Corps knew where she was. There, yeah. Back at base housing, Kathy packed all of her belongings up into the little teardrop trailer she had for her Harley. That she had for her Harley. She hooked it up to the Road King and headed towards the main gate. She felt a little uneasy about leaving the Corps, but excited about this new family. She had called in a favor when she got back to the base and found out that Joseph Donaldson was indeed a retired Marine major who had a stint in the 4th 4Con before he retired and going to work for the oil company. That explained why he took her in so quickly and fully. Kathy pulled her Harley and trailer to a stop at the main gate to the camp and was surprised to see her friend, Staff Sergeant Jenny Holland, stationed there. Jenny came out of the booth and hurried past the other MP that was going to check Kathy off base and gave her a warm handshake. So you're actually out, huh? Yeah, gonna miss it, but I got a great posting to a family. I got a great posting doing family security with a former 4Con major. So she let it hang in the air. Well, don't be a stranger and keep in touch. Of course I will. Yeah, right, Jenny smiled. Now get out of here, Marine. She snapped at attention, saluted. Kathy returned the salute and drove off. 2 hours later, Kathy had unpacked her belongings, was making a list of what she needed to buy to be ready to start work in the morning. When Mary and Jane came running out towards the gatehouse and the garage, yelling for everyone to come into the house quickly. At the same time, the intercom activated and the mother's voice came out sounding quite panicked, calling them to hurry to the house. Let me change that from she. That's going to may sound a little. Kathy grabbed her matching S&W 645s, which were hanging in their double shoulder holsters on the back of one of the chairs in her room, and ran into the hallway as she swung them over her shoulders and snaked her arms through the straps. Ross Martin and Paul Snyder were running from the gatehouse towards the garage in the main house. They were pulling their jackets over their weapons. Ross had a Glock 40 caliber, or 40 caliber. I need to add that in there. Had a Glock 40 caliber in a light brown hip holster, and Paul had a Browning 45 in a black web shoulder holster. Kathy noticed that neither one of them had extra magazines, at least not that she could see. Her rig had two extra pouches, 2 extra magazines on each side. I'm getting all tongue-tied here and eye blurry. Her rig had pouches for 2 magazines on each side. When she got to the bottom of the stairs leading from her room above the garage, she saw the twins looking very scared. What's wrong? There's an asteroid that's going to hit the Earth, Mary said. What? Yeah, it's on the news right now. Hurry, Jane added. They all ran to the main house and into the side door and continued to the family room, where the rest of the family was fixated on the large LCD TV. And so we urge our listeners not to panic and stay in tune for more updates. Repeat, sources at NASA have leaked that an asteroid of immense size is on a possible collision with the Earth. Please stand with more up-to-the-minute information after these words from our sponsors. Oh my God, Joseph, what are we going to do? Linda asked in a panic and on the verge of tears. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, dear. I'm just not sure. Maybe nothing. We don't have enough information. Mr. Donaldson, Ross spoke up. What is it? I suggest we at least start packing for the farm. Then Rod added, just in case. Are you sure we need to do that now? Before Ross could reply, Kathy asked, what's the farm and where is it? It's my grandparents' farm in Idaho, Linda answered. They have 2.5 sections of farm land. Hang on, have sections of farmland. She saw the confusion on Kathy's face and added, which is 640 acres per section, but they lease out all but 40 acres. Kathy nodded as she processed the information. I think Ross is right. We should start packing essentials for a quick evac. And if we have time, pack more for a long stay. She then turned to Ross. Are the vehicles fully fueled? Paul answered. I topped everything off this morning, and the travel trailer has a full tank of water. All 4 propane tanks are full. Turning back to Joseph, Kathy said, Major, with your permission. Joseph nodded. Of course, Gunny. Paul, Kathy started. I saw a gas station on the way in that had propane exchange. Take the truck and get all the tanks you can and all the jerry cans too. Go now. And all the jerry cans you too. Right now. Go. It won't take long before they're gone. Ross, let's get the other vehicles ready. We should prepare to leave when Paul gets back. Major, can we get every TV turned on to the news channel so we can hear their updates as we pack? Yes, we can. And then turn to his family. Let's get busy packing, everyone. We may not have much time. Remember, only essential. Hair dryers and makeup are not survival items, but toothbrushes are. Kathy shouted as she headed to the pantry to start pulling items. 20 minutes later, Paul returned with 15 propane tanks, 6 jerry cans of gasoline, 3 of diesel, and 3 cases of motor oil. Kathy and Ross were packed in 5 minutes, and another 10 minutes had the Escalade hooked up to the open road 3-axle fifth wheel trailer using the automated safety hitch system. While she was packing, Kathy changed in while she was packing her belongings. I need to add that in there. While she was packing her belongings, Kathy changed into dark navy blue cargo pants and a long sleeve shirt of matching color. She chose the blues instead of camo because they looked more official. Going back in the house to check on the family, she found them with a dozen packed bags in the family room watching the news. There would be extremely high tides as the asteroid passes the Earth, but it will not collide with the planet, according to our sources at NASA. In addition, there appears to be a dozen smaller asteroids. Asteroids that are following the main one. Oh, okay. Hang on, let me check something here. All right. Give me a second. I got to set something up on my other computer here real quick. Just got a message from Shadow Scout Swede with the link for that. And I got to get that set up here real quick here. All right. That's set up. Stream to your audience. Rayman prepping. Much. Come on. Control C. I got to get Shadow's thing here set up real quick here, folks. He just sent me the information for it. Control C. Oh, no. Shoot. Dang it. Screwed that up. I need to. There it is. Edit. I forgot to put in the upload thumbnail first. I'll be right with you guys. Give me a second here. There we go. Apply. There we go. Save changes. All right. And out of there and grab this thing here. Control C. Bring up this. I need to go to channel content. Fresh. Yeah, if anybody's still here, just hang on. This is going to take me another minute. And what I'm doing is, fortunately, I set most of the stuff up ahead of time. And okay. So it's quicker to set up a live stream, all the data, just copy and paste here for it. Playlist. This is lifelong streams, Survival Saturday, events explored. Okay, put that there. And put that out, V, save, customize, save, details. And I'm back. All right, got it all set up for the live stream that starts in 2 hours. That's the live stream with Shadow Scout Swede. The title of that live stream is It is the first 48 hours of grid failure, what to do. And that's what we'll be talking about as I go live with. I'll be streaming it with Shadow Scout Swede in 2 hours. All right, let's get back on with this. All right. Someone else just came in. All right. So let's get on with this now that I got the next live stream set up with Shadow Scout Swede. Okay, going back into the house to check on the family. She found him with a dozen packed bags in the family room watching the news. There will be extremely high tides as the asteroid passes the Earth, but it will not collide with the planet, according to our sources at NASA. In addition, there appears to be a dozen or so smaller asteroids that are following the main one. These, according to one source, are no bigger than 100 feet in diameter. We will remind our viewers to stay tuned for the president's press conference in 15 minutes. The co-anchor began to speak. To recap, for those of you that just joined us, our source at NASA has reported a massive asteroid will pass, not hit, the Earth in mid-October. The president will be speaking to the nation in about 15 minutes, so stay tuned. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Thank God, Linda exclaimed. Well, that was a waste of time, Jake grumbled. Maybe not, Kathy said quietly. What do you mean, Gunny? Just because it misses the Earth doesn't mean there won't be problems here. I agree, Ross said. Don't forget, they said it appears a dozen or so smaller asteroids are following the big one. One of those might hit the Earth. And there will definitely be other problems, Paul said. When I was at the gas station, a guy wanted to take some of the propane tanks and jerry cans from the truck. Luckily, he didn't have a gun. I suggest that we go to Costco's or Sam's Clubs and load up on beans and rice and toilet paper while we can. Maybe some canned goods, bulk cereal. Change that to bulk cereal. Bulk, D-U-L, bulk cereal. and bulk cereal, Kathy said. These things may become in short supply soon. Good idea, Joseph agreed. Dear, you, Jane, and Ross go to Costco. Paul, you take Jake and Mary and hit Sam's Club. I will go with Gunny to Smart and Final. 1 cart each unless you think it's safe to do 2. Let's go. As they headed out, Kathy quick. As they headed out, Kathy quick stepped up to Joseph. Major, another question. How much ammo do you have? He stopped and thought, not enough. I thought as much. You should go to Smart and Final. It'll be safer than Costco or Sam's Club. I'll go to Dick's Sporting Goods. No. Go to Canyon Guns on East Street behind the Chevy dealership. Ask for Mickey. And he handed her a wad of $100 bills. 12 gauge, 20 gauge, 45s, 9mm, 22s, 223, 30-30, and 308, and whatever you need. Kathy nodded and ran to her Harley Davidson Road King. She pulled everything out of the saddlebags. Then she dumped out her oversized gym bag and stuffed it in one of the saddlebags. She fired up the Road King and was out of the driveway before the others. Hang on here. The others had finished disconnecting the trailers. When she got to Canyon Guns, Kathy was surprised to find the store nearly empty. She was able to find Mickey right away and told him that she was working for Joseph Donaldson. And Mickey smiled and asked how the Major was doing. It turned out Mickey had served under the Major for 6 years, 4 of which were in 4th Forcon. What the heck's going on here? Let me check something here. Okay. All right, guys, I'll be right back. Something's acting up on the computers here. Okay, I'm back. I gotta check something over here. All righty. All right, let's see what we got here. And someone else just joined us. Welcome. When Mickey found out that Kathy was 4th Forcon as well, I need to put that in. You need to put that in there as well. And on terminal leave, he took her in back and help her load up the gym bag with the shotgun and rifle ammunition. Then loaded 2 cardboard boxes with the pistol ammunition the Major wanted, plus some .40 caliber for Ross. Then Mickey sold her 2 cases, 10,000 rounds each of the elusive .22 caliber 22 long rifle ammunition. She spotted a Smith & Wesson Magnum and a tactical quick draw holster for it. Grabbing those, 2 Ruger 1022s with 6 25-round magazines. Mickey helped Kathy load the ammo in the saddlebags of the Road King and strap the gym bag across the top of the bags. Then they tied the boxes with the Rugers in them on top of the gym bag. Just before she got on the bike, Mickey told her to tell the major that a Barrett 82A1 should be in this afternoon's shipment if you wanted to come by and check it out. Kathy stopped and asked him how much ammo he had for it. He replied he had 500 rounds in the store and another 2,000 that was coming with the rifle. Kathy pulled out her credit card and said she would take the rifle and all the ammunition. After paying for it, she gave him her cell number and told her to call him as soon as it was there. He agreed, and she pulled out heading towards Smart and Final. When Kathy got into the parking lot, Joseph was just loading the Ford Flex with 4 carts of food. What happened to 1 or 2 carts? There was hardly anyone here when I got here, so I decided to take advantage of it. So I did. Yeah, so did I, she added, as she unstrapped the Rugers and gym bag and tossed them in the Flex with the food. Mickey said the Barrett would be in this evening's shipment, so I bought it and all the ammo he had for it. When I pick it up, I'll get a scope case to mount on my bike. That way I can always split off from you and give you cover when we do bug out. I'm gonna change the way this is here a second here. REA. You're really going to stick with us? You really don't know us. I hired on and gave you my word. Kathy turned and looked Joseph square in the eyes. You're 4th Forcon. You're my family now. Semper Fi, she said and saluted him. Hoorah, he returned the salute. Breaking her salute, she turned and got back on the Harley. I'm going to head over to Sam's Club and see how they're doing. I'll head over to Costco and check on them, he answered with his there we go. Take that out. That didn't need to be in there. No, sir, she fired back. Take what you have, go, and secure home. Let me do my job. I can get around a lot quicker and faster than you can. She started the Road King and sped away, leaving the major standing there shaking his head and smiling. 3 minutes later, Kathy was pulling into the Sam's Club parking lot and spotted Paul in the Chevy 1-ton 4x4 backing out of a parking stall. Change it to a parking stall. She wheeled around and drove up to him head on. Did you get everything? More. We just beat the crowd and got 2 full carts of TP and 1 of rice, beans, and cereal. Great. The major's on his way home. I'll head over to Costco and escort them back. Roger that, Paul acknowledged and pulled out. Kathy gunned the Harley ahead and proceeded to Costco as fast as she could go. In her mind, Costco would be the trouble spot. The lines are always longer there. That would mean Ross, Linda, and Jane could still be in the checkout lines. 5 minutes later, she pulled up to the 2 police motorcycles parked there, so she whipped around and parked next to them. At first glance, her Road King looked like another police bike being painted black and white, but it was missing the decal and it had a bigger engine. Kathy got off the bike and walked over to the exit door. She still had her MP badge and ID from the occasional working assignments with the base MPs. She dug it out of her pants pocket and flashed it at the employee staffing the exit. She had seen Kathy ride up, and since she was dressed in dark blue cargo pants and shirt, she thought she was another. She thought she was another cop responding to help the other two cops that went inside a minute ago. So she just waved her in. They're over by the office store. As she walked in, she took off her Ray-Ban aviators with hooked temple tips and folded them and put them in her shirt pocket. It took but a half a moment for her eyes to adjust to the dimmer lights in the store. But she immediately saw two motor officers talking to an irate customer and the store manager on her left. Ross, Linda, and Jane getting 3 carts checked out on the right. She chuckled to herself. This family doesn't follow orders blindly. As she got closer to the officers on her way to her charges, she recognized one of the officers from her duties with the MPs. His name was John Thomas. He had her twisted sense of humor. She slowed her pace and listened to the conversation going on with the officers and the customer. The customer was claiming he had plenty of balance on his charge card, and there was no reason the store denied his charge. He was getting louder, more agitated every time they tried to calm him down. Kathy smiled to herself and walked up behind the customer and winked at John Thomas. "Hey, Kat," he said, "how are things with Homeland Security?" The customer froze mid-sentence. Homeland Security was all he could squeak out without turning around. "Not bad. The president has declared martial law, so we get to shoot illegals and troublemakers on sight. Which do you have here so I can put it on my toe tag report?" The customer sighed and passed out. "Kat, that was so wrong," John Thomas said with a laugh. "Thanks." "Me wrong?" Kathy asked innocently. "What about you saying I was Homeland Security?" "Hey, it worked when we raided that floating betting parlor your Marines were getting ripped off at." That it did, she said with a wicked smile as the memories flooded back into her mind. "So I hear you got out of the Corps. What are you going to do now?" "I'm working executive security, guarding the family of an oil company senior vice president." "Sweet," John said, a little envy in his voice. "If you need a partner, give me a call." "What about your fiance? This is a live-on-site gig." John sighed and his face clouded over. "She called it off and went back home to her folks yesterday. She just didn't have the mindset to be a cop's wife." "I kind of like her." "Me too. But if she can't hack the stress, maybe it's for the best she called it off now. I think I've realized that all I did was like her a lot. It wasn't love." "Maybe she felt that," John said as if he just made a final decision. Then he smiled at Kathy. "Seriously, though, hang on, I need to put a comment in there. Seriously, though, send me the company's info so I can check it out." "You got it," Kathy nodded and added, "See you around, JT." Then she turned back to where the Donaldsons had finished checking out, and Ross was helping Linda and Jane move the carts towards the exit. She quickly turned to JT. Call me if you need a shoulder to cry on or whatever." She gave him a sly smile. "You can count on it." She turned around and stepped over by the path where the shoppers were making their way towards the exit and waited for them to get to her. Jane was pushing the first cart, which was loaded with a few cases of diced tomato. "Hey, Kathy, what are you doing here?" "Everyone else is on the way home, so I came by to see if you were having any problems." "Not yet," Jane smiled. for a second before reality set in. It's really going to get bad, isn't it? Maybe, maybe not. We just have to be prepared for whatever comes. As they walked by the officer, JT called out, "Hey, Kat, is that them?" "Yep," Kat replied and nodded. "Cool." When they got to the person at the exit checking receipts, Linda came forward with the receipt and Kathy dropped back by Ross. "What was that about?" JT is a very good friend. He was asking what I was doing. "Oh, we got a couple more people in the house. Welcome. Don't forget to say hi in the chat." "All right. What was that all about?" Ross asked. JT is a very good friend. He was asking what I was doing now that I'm out of the Corps. He might be interested in the other opening. There's no. That was Paul. Yeah. Hang on. I need to put this in. There's a no dating fellow employees rule, Paul said. Damn. And his girlfriend just left them. She couldn't handle the stress of being in a relationship with a cop. "Oh well," Kathy sighed and added, "The major found smart and final with hardly anyone there, so he got 4 cartloads. Paul, Jake, and Mary got 3. Yeah, we were able to grab 3 carts before they started limiting shoppers to 1 per group. Lucky you. Yeah, how'd you do? Bonus points big time, and I got you several boxes of your brand. Thanks." When they got outside, it was getting more chaotic by the second. Kathy stepped up to the first cart to help Jane steer it through the crowd. She had her left hand on the handle and was leaning slightly forward with her right on the packages of toilet paper, with many excuse me's coming through. With many excuse me and coming through, they got through the crowd and out into the parking lot and to the Escalade. They started to load their supplies, not they supplies. Another typo I did. Their supplies. As they started to load their supplies, Kathy went back to get her bike so she could escort them home. She got back to it just as a greasy-looking punk knelt down beside one of the saddlebags on her Harley with a knife and started working on the lock, trying to jimmy it. His buddy, a pencil-neck geek, was keeping a lookout, but looking the wrong direction. They figured the owner would be coming from inside the store. So he was watching the exit door. When she got right up behind the lookout, she planted her left foot in front of her, spun halfway around, and snapped her right foot up to the back of the lookout's head. The blow lifted him about 6 inches off the ground and propelled him forward in such a way that he landed on a belly flop on the concrete several feet away. When the greaser heard the geek hit the concrete and several people gasped, he quickly looked over his right shoulder and was shocked to see his buddy laying there. Then he jerked his head around the other way to see who knocked him down, only to find the business end of a Smith & Wesson 45 3 inches from his nose. "That's my bike you're breaking into," she growled and grabbed a head full of hair. "Drop the knife or a flash is the last thing you're going to see." The greaser's hand went limp and the knife fell from his hand. "Don't shoot me. I didn't know it was your bike." "But you knew it wasn't yours, didn't you?" "Yeah, I knew, but I give up. You can't shoot me." "Didn't you hear? The president declared martial law. I've orders to shoot lawbreakers on sight." Then she cocked the pencil. "Oh, geez, please don't shoot me." "Why not, you little shit? You scratched the snot out of my bag." I'll pay for it." "Pay for what?" John Thomas asked as he walked up with his pistol drawn, pointed towards the greaser's feet. "My saddlebag," Kathy snapped, glaring at the greaser. "Lenny!" John Thomas sighed, shaking his head. "Please tell me you didn't use your switchblade to try to break into a federal officer's bike." "Crap, man, that's federal time. If she just doesn't shoot you on principle." I can pay for it," Lenny yelled. "I got $5 grand it's in my pack." Kat, are you willing to let him pay for the damage? Kathy thought about it, thought about the bear, how much the scope was going to cost her. I guess I can let him live if he pays that much for it now. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Lenny babbled as he slowly took his pack off. He started to unzip it, and John Thomas warned, "There better not be a gun in there, Lenny. I'd hate to get your brain splattered all over my uniform." Lenny carefully slid out a 6x8 mailer and handed it over to Kathy. She took the mailer and said, "Close the pack and put it back on." She opened the mailer and saw what looked like well over 50 $100 bills. "Are you good, Kat?" "Yeah, I'm good." She slid the mailer inside. She slid the mailer inside her jacket pocket. Sorry, she slid the mailer inside. Hang on, in her jacket pocket. "Now, Lenny, pick up your buddy and get." Sure thing. Sure thing. Then Lenny worked on rousing his buddy, getting him to stand up so he could help him walk away. When they were gone around the corner, Kathy said to John Thomas, "You might want to tell your ex-girlfriend to get some supplies. I have a feeling things are going to get way crazier by the minute." "I think you're right. I may have to quit my job just to stay safe. And if I can get on with your company, much better. Let me know if you do. Although there's a no dating fellow employees policy, but let me check on something before you quit." John Thomas blinked and straightened up. "I didn't know you felt that way, Kat. You had a fiance, and I don't play that game." "Okay," JT sighed. "See you around, Kat." She started the Harley. "JT," she called out. "Oh, TJ, come here." "Oh, it's supposed to be JT. Yep. Hang on. Let me fix that. John Thomas. There we go. JT, she called out over the motor's noise and waved him back over to her. When he got close, she said, "I have something for you now that you're on the market again." She gave him a quick kiss and smiled as she pulled away through the crowd, who scrambled to get out of her way as she revved its engine. She started turning it in the direction of the Escalade when she saw it coming her way. She waved them past and pulled in behind them as they headed home. All right. Mark Rogers walked into the senior partners meeting with a big smile on his face. He had gotten the final financials on the new Boise, Idaho office, and the numbers were better than he had hoped for. A couple of the other senior partners were less than supportive on opening an office in Boise, much less joining with an existing firm and bringing on that office's head as a junior partner. However, at Mark's insistence, the acquisition merger went through, and Mark had overseen the process at first, then pulled back, and Dewey Johnson had been able to drum up more business than they had expected. Mark even had to send a couple of associates to help him out until they could hire permanent local associates. This would be great justification to open an office in Salt Lake City, Utah, and Phoenix, Arizona. Mark was trying to move more of the firm's new account focus to areas away from the coast. Although this was spurred in part by the strong hints given him by his son Walt, he also felt it was just good business sense to diversify in that direction. Although through Walt, though Walt said he couldn't talk about it in detail, he was able to refer enough in the novels to get the point across with Sarah's help. If the coming disaster was survivable, he wanted his company to be in the forefront of bringing law and order back to a devastated America. Mark walked over to the audio-visual hookup and plugged in his laptop and keyed up the one slide he had for the meeting. Then he hit the letter B, and the monitors around the room went blank. He'd done it so fast that no one who was there got a decent glance at the data. Taking the remote with him to his seat, Mark sat waiting for the other partners to arrive. When all the senior partners were present, the presiding partner called the meeting to order after the roll call was made. Mark requested to be first to present the financials of the new Boise office. The presiding partner nodded, and Mark pressed the B key on his laptop and brought the presentation brought up the presentation on the flat screen TVs and received several groans. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make this short as I'm delaying my vacation to make this presentation. Therefore, I only have one slide for this presentation, Mark said with a smile that brought forth even more mouthings of approval than there were groans before. I draw your attention to the first column on the left. These are the projected losses that were put forth to be the result of this merger by those who did not believe in it, to believe it a worthwhile endeavor. The next column are the projected profits that my team modestly estimated would come from the merger. And the third column are actual profits, 3 times that of the projected profits. Cheers and applause greeted the numbers. Even those who were against it were clapping. Well done, Mark, said the presiding partner. What are the projections for next year? That depends on whether or not we open offices in Salt Lake City, Utah, and Phoenix, Arizona. Mark held up his hand to stop the onslaught of questions. Right now, Boise is poised to become a major player in our firm for the digital age. It is in a relatively earthquake-free zone, unlike LA and SFO. Or even here, we need a secure digital storage center for all of our own files. And if we offer that to clients, well, there will be that's where the big money will be for the future, legal digital warehousing. There were a couple of under the breath grumblings when one of the partners most opposed to the Boise office spoke up. I'm all for it, all of it. Mark looked at him a little perplexed. Charles, if I may inquire, what changed your mind so much? Charles chuckled. Several things. 1, the profits from Boise. 2, my broker asked me about a digital storehouse for legal documents outside the coastal states. 3, it makes damn good sense. Just then there was a loud knock on the door, and Mark's administrative assistant came in. Excuse me, but there's something on the news you must see. She walked over and took the remote from Mark and changed the flat screen TV to Fox News. Our sources at NASA have confirmed that a massive asteroid is headed towards the Earth, and projections say it may not hit the Earth, but should pass between the Earth and the Moon and the Earth sometime next month. We will try to get exact date as soon as we can for you. The asteroid appears to be on a grand arc orbit that brought it out from behind the asteroid belt. It had been in a blind spot from my telescope, which is why it was not spotted until this week. It is not known where it came from or what type of material it is made of. Our sources say that if it's just ice and dust, it presents less of a threat than if it has an iron core. Hang on, got to clear my eyes again. Yeah, it's damn dry, humidity here is causing my eyes to water a lot. And let me get a cough drop in because I'm about ready to have a coughing fit. There we go. Iron core. It appears that the asteroid is about 50 miles in diameter, which could make it about 8 times the size of the one that caused the extinction of the dinosaurs. However, our sources say it is not supposed to hit the Earth, but will come very close to it. The announcer paused as he was handed a piece of paper and then continued. We have just received word that the president is going to hold a press conference in about 30 minutes to address this issue. We will continue coverage of this breaking news story in a moment. Mark took the remote back and muted the TV. I do believe this is the greatest crisis our city will ever face. It's going to be very dangerous on the streets very soon. I'm going to have my staff leave now and telework from home. I suggest you do the same. I'm going to have my staff the same. Contact the courts and get postponements for every case you can until next week when things should settle down a bit. How do you know that? Charles asked. Mark reached over and grabbed Charles' laptop, disconnecting his from the AV hookup, and then attached Charles. He brought up Amazon and typed in Walt Rogers, and Walt's page came up. You see these first 3 books? The federal government, the federal and state governments have been buying these copies like crazy. The most important is his current bestseller, Blood Moon Falling. I would get a copy and read it today. Mark slid Charles's laptop back to him and picked up his own lap and turned to leave. And he did so. He saw everyone still sitting there in shock except for Charles, who was ordering the books. Now, people, he shouted and left the room with his administrative assistants on his heels. Mr. Rogers, she choked out, is this the end of the world? Mark stopped and turned to face her. She was barely holding it together. The end of the world? No. The end of the world as we know it? Possibly for a while. Did you ever get the 6 months food supply you and your husband were talking about? She nodded and whispered, yes. Good. Now get our staff out of here and head home now. I will be in contact via emails, text messages. Text messages and Facebook communicator. Actually, I'm going to change this to it run. There we go. And space communicator. She hurried off to tell their staff what to do. Mark turned and pulled out his cell phone and called Walt. When Walt answered, he said only 3 words, it has leaked. Then he called Mary. Mary Rogers had been working. Oh, wow, this is taking longer than I thought. Mary Rogers had been working all morning with Professor Howard Earp, in his aeroponics lab. They were setting up a new racking system for tomatoes, one that would allow for more space usage and not and better root saturation and retention of the moisture and nutrients. One of the advantages of the plant's this system is be able to be used in space aboard the Mars Advanced Testing Simulator, or MATS. Hang on, let me see, or MATS, as it was called, or as it was referred to. As such, it was built in a standard 40-foot cargo container that had been modified with self-contained environmental control system. The idea was to have it be able to be moved from one location to another by truck while in full operation. This would simulate being transported to launch site and launched into space, and then docked in a receiving port on the mats. If this system worked, it would mean that the spaceship to Mars would be more like a cargo ship. The framework support structure with an engine and command center. The astronauts going to Mars would be able to would be in their own cargo units. Another plan was for the system was earthbound. Units like this could be deployed to areas for support, to disaster areas for relief support. It was that use that Mary was more concerned about. One of which she had received lots of funding for from the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Interior. They had built several prototypes which had been taken out for road testing, but in reality were being copied and deployed to Midwest states. One of the units running around the clock to produce more food in a year than 5 acres of farmland. So there had been several hundred of these units built. This was the next generation model. It was 50% more effective and 16% more efficient in power usage. She and Professor Epps would be getting 3 more set up this week for testing. 1 for potatoes, 1 for kale, and 1 for wheat. Wheat test crops had been a failure. Let me change that. Test crops had been a failure so far with all the other container designs. But with this new configuration, it looked like it might work. Okay, turn on the pumps, Professor Earp called out from behind the spray rack. Mary turned them on, and the nozzle emitted an ultrafine mist of nutrients. She walked the length of the 30-foot rack and saw no leaks. It looks fine on this side, Howard, she hollered. Looks good on this side too, he hollered back. Turn them off and we'll slide it back into place and secure it. When Professor Earp was out from behind the rack, Mary turned on the screw motor, and the rack slid on its track back against the wall. They secured the lockdown latches that held it in place during operating sessions. Blah, getting tongue-tied here. During operating sessions. Now we'll let Jason and Margie insert the seedlings, Professor Earp said with satisfaction. It should be ready for a road trip tonight. I agree, Mary said. I better check on Bobby and Alex and see if they have the flats ready for the wheat done. I'll take some more pictures for the file. As Mary walked towards the door, her cell phone rang. She pulled it from her pocket and stopped when she saw it was her husband, because he rarely called her at work. Hey, what's up? Okay, got it. Mary turned around and went back to Professor Earp. Howard, it's happened. The word has leaked out. It's about time, he said with a sense of relief. So what's happening now that the word is out? Nothing yet that we know of, but it's a matter of time before the world goes crazy. As if it's not already, the professor chortled under his breath. We better get the other containers loaded and shipped so we can finish testing in Idaho. All right. Sally and David Rogers were at the Westfield South Center Mall with Brian, Nikki, and their parents for shopping for winter clothing they might need for the next couple of winters. They had about 6 bags of clothing when Sally's phone rang. Hey, Daddy, Sally said when she answered the phone. We're at South Center. Just then, several people came running out of BJ's restaurants and brew house screaming that the world was going to end. Yeah, it's starting now. Bye, she said quickly. We got to get out of here now. People freaking out helped drive the point home to the Thomases. They started to really believe what Walt and Mark had been telling them about how dangerous and stupid people would be in a disaster situation. They made their way towards the exit and then to, hang on, I need to put that in there. And then to Eric's Yukon. Once they reached it, they threw all the bags in the back and climbed in. As they were pulling out of the parking space, Sally noticed they only had half a tank. Dad, we better get gas while we can. The lines are going to get long and insanely fast, and the prices are going to go up faster, she said with a panic tremble in her voice. Eric smiled at Sally, calling him Dad, despite the tenseness of the situation. He pulled into the Chevron station by the mall exit, and Sally bailed out of the Yukon before it came to a stop and stuck her credit card into the pump. She spun the cap off as soon as Eric popped the door and inserted the nozzle and gave it a hard squeeze. 16 gallons later, the Yukon was full, and just as Sally said, the price went up 50 cents, and a line was forming behind them. Hopping back in the SUV, she said a little too loud, "Let's get out of here." Oops, I got to change that to capital L. This is why I proofread, folks. I find little quirks when I go through and read it aloud. The Thomases had 1 year supply of Mountain House canned and bag dehydrated food at their cabin in Wellington, Washington, well above the 1,000-foot elevation. They figured they would be safe there. Reluctantly, they had tripled the amount of food at the cabin and had 4 55-gallon barrels of water just in case the well pump wasn't working. Now they wish they had doubled what they had there now, what they now had there. At first, the drive home was normal. Then about 5 miles from the off-ramp, traffic slowed to a crawl. 45 minutes later, they pulled off the freeway and were back to normal speeds for the rest of the trip home. Usually Eric pulled forward into the garage, but this time he took the extra time to back in. Then he had the kids park their cars in the driveway as close to the garage door as they could, and alongside the garage in front of the Lux travel trailer. Once everything was secured outside, everybody went inside and made sure the doors and windows were locked too. Then Eric called Mark and apologized for not taking him as seriously as he should have. Press conference of the President of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, Ronald William Lepedemain, President of the United States of America. My fellow Americans, I come before you today to set the rumors and wild speculations to rest and give you the true information about the asteroid that is headed our way. First of all, it will not make contact with the Earth. The closest it will come to the Earth is 60,000 miles, which is more than a quarter of the distance to the moon. He's held his hand up and continued. Second, yes, there will be exceptionally high tides for a couple days before and after it passes. The height of the tides will vary depending on your location, since the asteroid will pass in the southern hemisphere. We will not suffer the greatest effects in high tides. However, we will still have tides that will mandate the evacuation of coastal cities with an elevation less than 500 feet. This evacuation will begin on October 1st and should be completed by the 10th, 9 days before the asteroid passes. Thirdly, yes, the government has known about the asteroid for several months and has been constructing temporary housing in the central states for those that need to evacuate the coastal areas. Most of these camps are being finished this and next week, and they will have power, water, sewer, and other essential services. We deemed it best not to release information about the asteroid at the time because all that would have done would have hampered our efforts to prepare housing for those that must evacuate. Flood zone maps are being distributed to all affected state and local government agencies as I speak to you. We will try to keep communities together by assigning them to the same camps. If you have relatives in non-coastal areas, you may go stay with them if you choose. If you have a vacation home at a high elevation, please go there. If you have an RV, motorhome, or travel trailer or camper, you are encouraged to use those to travel to the relocation camps or other locations where you can stay for several months. I am freezing all prices, food, fuel, everything. There will be no price gouging What a loaf of bread cost last week, it'll cost the same until this event is over. Hoarding will not be allowed. Grocery stores will allow only one level cart per family. Food deliveries will continue to the evacuation areas until September 29th. At that time, deliveries will be rerouted to relocation camps. Fuel vouchers will be provided by your local governments. Now, the hardest order I've ever given, I'm declaring martial law throughout the United States and her territories. There is a national curfew from 1 hour after sunset to 1 hour before sunrise, except for those that have jobs to be at during curfew hours. Looters are to be shot on sight. We will not tolerate looting, riots, or other lawlessness. Citizens may use deadly force in defending their homes. No charges are to be filed by any law enforcement agency against anyone defending their home against intruders. Criminals arrested during the next 2 months will be taken to detainment camps in Arizona and New Mexico. The right to a speedy trial is suspended for the next 3 months. The highest point in Florida is only 345 feet. In Delaware, it is 447 feet. In Rhode Island, it is 812 feet. In the District of Columbia, it's 400 feet, 410 feet. Because of this, I'm ordering these states in the District of Columbia and these states, I'm ordering the evacuation of these states in the District of Columbia. These are the only states that will have to be completely evacuated at this time. There are 33 days until the arrival of the comet. Now, some of you may ask, if the asteroid is going to miss the Earth, why, and be 60,000 miles away, why are we having to evacuate? The answer is this. This is no ordinary chunk of rock asteroid. No, this is a nearly solid mass of iron. And as such, has the gravitational pull almost as strong as the moon. So as it passes, it'll have immense influence on the Earth, on the ocean tides. Tides are expected to be at least 500 feet on both coasts and maybe higher in the Gulf Coast states. For this reason, any area on the coast that has an elevation less than 1,000 feet and an unobstructed path through the ocean is going to be evacuated. The evacuation for the West Coast is 800 feet. The lower for the West Coast is because the rotation of the Earth and the path of the asteroid and the pull of the ocean waters. That may change as we get more information. Now, we will get through this if we work together. FEMA will be making informational broadcasts on all channels and radio stations every 3 hours. Homeland Security is setting up several informational websites where FEMA broadcasts will be posted for viewing only. There will be nothing to download as of yet. I will turn the rest of the press conference over to the administrator of FEMA to cover more details on how evacuation process will work. The administrator of FEMA spent the next 30 minutes explaining the evacuation process, the locations of camps, and which zip code. Sorry, I just noticed I froze. The administrator of FEMA spent the next 30 minutes explaining the evacuation process, the location of camps, which zip codes were to go to which camp. He finished with the option that if you have families outside the evacuation there, you may go there. But indiscriminate relocations are to be avoided as there may not be resources there to support you. All right, that was chapter 5. And we had another person pop in and pop right out again. I have a feeling we're having trolls pop in and out because they pop in and see they got to subscribe to make a comment, and they go, and they can't just start making troll comments right off the bat. So they, yeah. All right. Chapter 6, Hunker Down. Dun, dun, dun. October 2nd. Okay, so let me glance back here. So the last chapter was September 18th. It's now 14 days later. Kathy rode her Road King and its little teardrop with its little teardrop trailer at the back of the little convoy as it was heading towards Idaho. Leading the convoy was Ross in the new Ford Raptor crew cab that Joseph had just bought. Next was Joseph driving the GMC Sierra 3500 Denali, and it was pulling the 28-foot sports trailer with 2 quads and other gear and supplies inside. Next, Paul was driving the Escalade, pulling the open road 3-axle fifth wheel trailer using the automated safety hitch system. Next was Linda in the Ford Flex with a 12-foot a 12-foot long Wells Cargo low top box trailer. In the last 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks, the major had dropped some serious cash on vehicle upgrades. For the GMC, he picked up a 250-gallon bed tank. He also got two 55-gallon tanks for the cargo trailers and a 100-gallon tank for the Raptor. Each tank was the fuel type for the vehicle that it was associated with, plus an additional 5 jerry cans, 2 with diesel, 3 with gasoline. Each vehicle also had 2 jerry cans with water and 3 cases of bottled water. All the vehicle's tires had been replaced with run-flat tires. He also changed out all the trailer tires to the same size. The trailer tires had spares of the regular type in them. The trailer tires had been filled with slime as had their spare sets. Each trailer had a 2-year supply of Mountain House dehydrated food in number 10 cans, while the vehicles had 8 cases of dinners, 8 cases of just dinners, and a 2-burner camp stove setup. In all, they had 6.5 years worth of Mountain House food. There was also several thousand pounds of bagged rice, wheat, and sugar in the trailers. The ammunition had been divided between the vehicles. Pistols had been stashed everywhere so anyone could get to one quickly, but only Ross, Paul, and Kathy had concealed weapons permits. The major had been able to get them travel permits for Nevada and a 1-year temporary permit for Idaho. The only place he wasn't able to get any permit for was Oregon, and they only had about a 2-hour drive time without traffic through the bottom southeast corner of the state. The rifles have been placed in the vehicles and trailers. Kathy's Barrett was in the Raptor, and she had Joseph's Quigley in 45 120 from Shiloh Rifle in Montana. Hang on. As a okay. In a scabbard on the front forks. She had been able to find a scabbard. She hadn't been able to find a scabbard for the Barrett that would mount on her Harley. While the Quigley didn't have the range the Barrett did, it was second best they had, and at 700 yards, she'd put the hurt on anybody that tried to mess with them. Plus, they had more ammunition for it than they did the Barrett. Mrs. Donaldson's grandparents, the Butterfields, lived in a town called Indian Valley just off of Highway 95 at the base of the Idaho Finger, due west of Yellowstone. Ross and Paul had both been there before when the family went there for summer vacations and once for Thanksgiving. Usually the trip took 17 hours with fuel, restroom breaks, so they would overnight in Fallon, Nevada, which was a little over halfway. This time had taken them most of the day just to get out of LA, and what should have taken a little over 5 hours to a town called Bentley, Nevada, had taken them 12 hours. It took them 3 more hours to get to Fallon, where they stopped for the night at the Kennecott Rawhide Mining Company and used their parking lot to camp in. It was a little past 9 p.m. when they pulled in and got the vehicle circled up. Ross had contacted the Fallon police department informed them what they were doing, that they would like to leave, and that they'd be leaving at 6 o'clock in the morning. He also asked if they had 2 off-duty officers that would like to make $500 each for the night as their sentries. 20 minutes later, the police chief and 2 officers showed up. After about 10 minutes of chatting, the police chief left and the two officers got set up. Ross pulled out the outdoor kitchen stove on the Road King trailer and set up a pot of coffee for them. The security guard for Kennecott Rawhide Mining Company gave him his cell number in case they needed to use the restroom. At 6:05, they pulled out and headed north on US Highway 95. The rest of the trip was uneventful, and they arrived at the farm 8.5 hours later. The first thing they did after greeting Linda's grandparents was set up the open road trailer next to the house and hooked up the utilities to it. Then they set up the 28-foot sports trailer next to the garage and also hooked up the utilities. The Donaldsons would stay in the open road, and Ross, Paul, and Kathy would stay in the sports trailer, which had 2 bedrooms. Seeing what the barn looked like, sorry, I need to put a word in here. But after seeing what the barn looked like, Kathy decided to set a cot up in the loft for several reasons. First, the workshop downstairs had its own bathroom, which would give her more privacy. Second, the window gave her an advantage point, which she could look out over the main approach to the property. Third, Ross snored, and that would keep her from being able to hear anyone trying to sneak up on them. Fourth, Paul owed her for giving her his own room in the trailer to sleep in. Most of the food was moved into the basement of the house with some of the ammunition and guns. Some more ammunition was stored in the trailer with Ross and Paul, and some in the shop some in the shop loft with Kathy, and the majority is placed in the underground bunker gun range in the barn along with the remaining food supplies. Then, while everyone else was finishing unpacking the vehicles, Kathy, with Mr. Donaldson's approval, went on a recon of the farm to get the lay of the land. When she got back to the house, everybody was gathered around the television watching the latest update on the asteroid and the relocation process. October 3rd. Kathy got the kids up at 5:30 and started them back on their boot camp routine. Only Mary was enthusiastic about it. She'd gone on a carnivore diet the day the news leaked, and in 15 days her weight dropped 5 pounds, but she looked like she had steel cables for muscles. She was exercising when there was nothing to do. She was outrunning her. Again, I want to autocorrect change that. Her brother and sister by increasing times every day. She was now doing leaning handstand push-ups several times a day, and even getting a couple of freestanding ones in. The next day, Ross and Paul joined them in the morning exercises, and the next day, the Major and Linda would start. Mr. Butterfield said that he and the missus were too old for that type of workout. Excuse me. All right, to do. David carried the last case of Mountain House dehydrated food into the Thomas's cabin and set it down to a stack in the living room of a groan. This one was sugar and heavier than the others. 87 cases this trip. Diane started to have trouble finding more places to store the canned food. Eric and Diane had really come around to prepping after what happened at the mall in September. They quadrupled their food supply at the cabin, brought 2 600-gallon water tanks, more solar panels, and a battery backup system, 2 chest freezers, and guns. Eric was an avid hunter, but a bow hunter. He felt that hunting with a rifle and killing the game from 100 yards away wasn't sporting. Even though he only killed game for food, he always wanted to give it a chance to survive. Now, with a glance on how mankind was going to react in public, he was very concerned. He was very concerned with how other people were going to act when they ran out of food. We've got a couple more people in here. Welcome, welcome. Shady Hill Homestead's here. Hi. Anybody else hi? Just say hi in the chat, okay? So with suggestions from Walt, Mark, and a few other hunter friends, and a lot of research on the internet, Eric and Diane decided they would get some guns to protect the family. They were able to get 3 Mossberg 20-gauge shotguns with 18.5-inch barrels, 4 Ruger 10-shot 22 pistols, 2 Ruger 10-22 rifles, and 1 Ruger Mini 14 rifle, and a Ruger SAR 736 rifle. They killed off their savings account and maxed out their credit cards, but Eric figured it was better than the alternative. Ammunition was more of a problem to get with the mad rush to get supplies. The whole family had to go to Dick's Sporting Goods stores 3 hours before they opened to get the bucket of bullets that had 1,600 22-round rifles in it. It was a special that was restricted to 1 bucket per customer. Even then, they were some of the last to get the ammunition. With 6 buckets, they hoped that they had enough and would be keeping an eye out to get more. Shotgun ammunition was easier to get, and they had a variety of loads, including slug, double-aught buck, pheasant, and clay target, for a total of 1,500 rounds. For the Mini 14 and SAR 736, they were able to load up on these and stockpile almost 3,000 rounds each in Nevada. They had a timeshare at Lake Tahoe in Nevada, so they had Nevada ID and were able to purchase weapons and ammunition there without the draconian restrictions of California, Oregon, and Washington. They were able to get cleaning kits, holsters, slings, belts, and the whole other host of sundries for the weapons. These filled 2 plastic totes. Froze. Eric also got 2 more compound bows, 3 crossbows, and 2 crossbow pistols. He surmised that arrows would become harder to get if everything fell apart for a while, so he bought 600 full-length arrows, 300 bolts for the crossbows, and 100 for the pistols. He didn't want to have to rely on rifles for hunting. Bows were quieter and therefore safer for his family to use, not alerting people as to where he was and letting him know that they had an opportunity to steal his kill or ambush him for his weapons and backtrack him to his home. David was quite happy with the way his relationship with the Thomases was going. The only thing he didn't like was the 1 full year engagement that Nikki's parents had insisted on. He wasn't looking forward. Actually, I need to change this next. He wasn't looking forward to leaving them to. Okay. He wasn't looking forward to leaving them to head to the ranch for a week to set up the retreat house. In case the Thomases needed to bug out from their cabin. Professor Howard Earp was trying to back the converted Greyhound bus into the covered area of his lot of the Redoubt Village. This was his fifth trying, and he wasn't having much better luck this time. "Stop," yelled his wife, Helena. "You're too close to the container for that angle." Howard pulled forward again, trying to get a better angle on the spot where he wanted the bus. He was just about to try again when he saw Stan Rogers drive into the loop road that made up the access for the Redoubt Village. Right behind him was the delivery truck he'd seen here 2 other times. The loop was more like a huge cul-de-sac with a large flat gravel area in the middle. Come on, roll. Come on, let's go. Dang it, what's going on here? Oh, there we go. Now it's moving. Putting the bus in park and setting the brakes, Howard opened the door and stepped out with a groan. His hip hated stairs. It didn't bother his knees walking on semi-level ground, but going up the 2 or 3 steps, they began to let him know it. "Stan," Howard called as soon as he had gotten out of the John Deere Gator. "Hey, Howard, are you getting settled in?" "Nope, I can't park that bus for the life of me." "Could you give it a shot?" "I could, but why don't we get a professional to do it?" He walked over to the delivery truck. "Hey, Bobby, could you do the professor a favor while we get your truck unloaded?" With a big smile on his face, Bobby Trickle said, "Well, sure thing. What can I do, Professor?" "Well," Howard began and pointed with an open hand towards his bus, "I can't seem to be able to get that thing right. To line that thing up right." Bobby laughed. "Not a problem, Professor. I'll get her right in for you." Climbing into the bus's seat, Bobby stuck his head out the window. "How close to the Connex do you want it?" "Connex?" Howard asked, confused. "Sorry, I should have said shipping container." "Oh, about 30 inches away, all the way back." "You got it. Just holler when you want me to stop." Bobby started backing up the bus quicker than Howard would have ever dared. And when he got about 10 feet from the back, he started slowing. "Stop," yelled Helena. "Perfect." "Every time," Bobby crowed to himself. Howard was waiting at the bus door while Bobby shut it down and secured the brakes. He offered Bobby his hand as Bobby stepped from the bus. "Thank you very much. You probably saved me several hours of frustration and a few dents." "Not a problem, Professor. What'd you bring this time?" Winter red wheat seed. "We'll be back in 3 days with another load of the same." Great. She did order, Howard. "Is there any chance you would know what the order after that is?" Bobby scratched the stubble on his head and thought for a minute. "Navy beans, half load, red kidney beans, the second half." Oh, good. They got back to Bobby's truck just as the last pallet was being lifted off and placed in the gravel island in the middle of the loop. Stan and his helpers were securing the soft sides of the trailer. Bobby did a quick look around to make sure all the bucklings were secure. "You guys did good enough to be truck drivers," Bobby said with a laugh. "See you in 3 days." "Did he get your bus parked where you wanted?" Stan asked as he walked back to them from the area they had unloaded the wheat. "First try," they both laughed. "Well, let's get those pallets moved into the container before it decides to rain." Forklift started up again, starting to move the one pallet at a time to into each container. Sorry, my eyes are getting buggy again here. The low humidity here because of the freezing temperatures makes my eyes water a bunch. And we got a couple more people here. Hey, Sarah and Carol were securing the heavy-duty vinyl truck tarp to the side of the house next to where Carol's mother's Airstream trailer was parked, so they could get it draped. So they could drape it over the trailer and give extra protection from the winter snows. It would also keep part of the driveway between the trailer and the house clear, so it would make it easier for her to come in and out of the house. Mick came out of the garage with some tie-down ropes and steel spikes when Danny drove up in her old ugly green Forest service truck. Hey, Danny, he called out as soon as she opened the door. A big smile flashed across his face. Hey, Mick, she called, and returning the smile as she hopped out of the truck and closed the door. Hey, Sarah, Mrs. Ahern, getting the trailer covered for snow, huh? Yeah, Sarah responded. Grandma is worried about slipping on ice, and Dad is worried that it may be an extra cold winter, so we're adding extra protection for the trailer and the walkway. I still say Grandma can have my room and I'll sleep out here, Mick chimed in. Right, and you'll be sneaking out how many times a week? None, I promise I wouldn't. Or having unapproved guests in? That neither. I'm not going to do anything like that until I'm married. Good for you, Mick, Danny said proudly of her best friend's brother. Then to Mrs. Ahern. That's kind of what I came over to talk to you about, Mrs. Ahern. Danny, what's on your mind? Carol asked. Well, Danny hesitated. My mom was 6 older than my dad when they got married, and I know you're 5 years older than Mr. Ahern. Okay, your point is, I would like your permission to date Mick. Danny said hurriedly and sighed when she said it. Danny, you're my best friend. You can't be serious, Sarah objected. Oh, I don't know, Carol faltered. I have to talk to Earl, and she stopped when she saw the way that Mick was looking at Danny. Oops, wait a minute. I got to change something here. Those dots are not the format I wanted to use. Get into the format I like here. Come on. 1, 2, 3. There we go. And I need to pull that back in. There we go. She stopped and saw the way that Mick was looking at Danny. Hang on, I need to add something here to that. Looking at Danny. And sighed, S-I-G-H-E-D, and sighed. Okay, but no hanky-panky. You're 19, he's still 17. You could get in real trouble. I understand, Danny. Hang on, Danny said. What's going on? What's going on here? Sarah exploded. You're my annoying little brother. Sarah, Danny said as she took Sarah's hands. You and Walt. I need to change that one there as well. You and Walt. She paused for a second for that to sink in. Mick hasn't been an annoying little brother for some time now, has he? He's grown up into a bit of a stud. He's been really nice and helpful and respectful, hasn't he? Well, Sarah, let me get this one fixed here. Well, Sarah thought, I guess so. That one there changed around. 1, 2, 3. When you're around, but when did he change? She asked in shock at the new image of her brother as the new image of her brother sunk in. When we were working on Walt's campaign, he started emailing me questions about life and what boys are supposed to do to make girls like them and stuff like that. I realized he was serious about changing, about being a proper man. After a while, I took another look at him, and my heart changed. Well, you see, the last couple of months, our whole relationship is involved. He's turning into a proper man ahead of time and not getting those bad habits that most guys have to overcome later. Yeah, I see your point, Sarah said slowly. You want to train him while you can. Besides, Danny said really cheerfully, if it works out, I'll be your best friend and sister-in-law. Mick got a huge smile on his face and turned towards his mother. Mom, don't freak out, okay? Why? She asked with a mother-scared look on her face. Mick turned and walked up to Danny, took her hands and dropped to one knee. Danny, will you marry me? Danny looked in happy shock at Mick, then quickly at Carol, who's looking back at her with her mouth hanging open, then at Sarah, then back at Mick, back at Carol, back to Mick. I kind of thought we might in a year when you're 18. She took a quick breath. But we will still have to wait for a while before we can actually get married. But yes, I will marry you. She glanced at Carol and saw the shocked look on her face and quickly added, with your parents' permission. When the clatter of tools hit the concrete, drew everyone's attention towards the garage, where Earl Airhern stood in shock with a pile of tools at his feet. What? Was all he could say as his jaw moved up and down. Danny, hang on here. Mick said as he stood up and looked intently in her eyes. I mean, as soon as possible. This week, if we can. Danny looked surprised at Mick's request. Why the rush? My thoughts exactly. Why the rush? Earl asked a little louder than he should have. The asteroid, Mick responded soberly. I have a really strong feeling this is going to be much worse than what we're being led to believe. He paused for a few seconds and then continued. I want a chance to be a good husband, even if it's only for a couple of weeks. Danny started to cry and grab Mick in a hug. You'll make a great husband and father, Mick. If I get a chance, Mick said sadly. We'll go to the county clerk's office after lunch and see what the requirements are, Carol said to everyone's surprise. But until then, we need to get this tarp up, the storm windows on the house, and winterize the trailer. She added, trying to redirect everybody's thoughts as well as her own, as a small tear formed in her eye. Wait a minute, Earl said when he finally found his voice. Don't I get to have a say in any of this? Carol looked at him with a sly smile. Did your dad? Earl was surprised that Carol would bring that up. He thought for a moment and let out his head no slowly as a small, exasperated smile crept across his face. Walt sat at his desk in the sheriff's office going over the invoices of supplies that were in the county warehouses. They were full to capacity, and DHS SAC Davies had delivered triple wide, had delivered 6 triple wide office trailers, 2 cargo, 2 generator cargo containers the size to the site of the biggest warehouse. DHS was going to use his county as a fallback center in case something happened to the Colorado site. This meant that there would be several DHS security teams. Let's see, I just lost it here as I scroll up. There'd be several DHS security teams besides a SAC Davies' team stationed here, along with their immediate families. Two of the huge I need to put that on there. Huge TRIP triple wide trailers would be for the families as dormitories. There'd also be 3 more 40-foot cargo containers with fuel tanks in them for the backup generators. Chris had said that the tanks were safer in containers if things really went bad. A fuel tank in the open was a definite target for looters, while sealed in a cargo container, it was an unknown quantifier and less of a motivator for those looking for specific things such as fuel or food. Even though there was not supposed to be any major problems at any of the federal bunker sites, the Secretary of Homeland Security had ordered SAC Davies to set the site up with as little public knowledge as possible. With this site far away from the rest of the known bunker sites, it was a good hide in plain sight redoubt. As such, the only thing that people in the county knew is that the sheriff was able to get a supply depot, just like most other counties. Instead of comma, yeah, only bigger. When the leak happened, Walt held a town hall meeting for the county the next day. The high school gymnasium was filled to capacity, and just about everyone was expecting political double talk about the asteroid. What they didn't expect was Walt's announcement that with the DHS's help, he had been able to set the county up set up an AOC, Emergency Operations Center, set up with supplies for the county. Because of this, Walt was the hero of the county. There's something wrong with that sentence. Let me see if I look at that sentence here. Let me take out this second setup out of there. He was able to get the county to set up an EOC, Emergency Operations. I need to change that to a capital O in the middle there. Typo. Emergency Operations Center with supplies for the county. Because of this, Walt was the hero of the county. He also informed everybody that supplies could not be touched for the first 18 months after the arrival of the asteroid. For that reason, everyone needed to stock up on as much food as they could. He announced that the county had secured several wholesale shipments of wheat, rice, pinto beans, black beans, navy beans, red kidney beans, rolled oats, barley, and split peas in 25 and 50-pound bags. Payments had to be made to the county clerk by 10 the next morning. The clerk's office had to stay open 3 hours later due to orders everyone was paying for. The FEMA websites were reporting that the relocation camps were going fairly well considering the amount of time the government had to construct them. The evacuations were going a little behind, but most of those that had most of those that had families out of the evacuation zone to go to had already left. Walt was concerned that there were so many still too close to the coast, even though they were supposedly in safe elevate. They were at a supposedly safe elevation. If something went wrong, they might be headed in his direction in mass panic. If Walt had his way, he would have had DHS double the elevations and flood surge zones at the beginning. He had heard that some of the old towns near Detroit that were basically abandoned were being repopulated with evacuees. The same with other towns across the Midwest that had fallen in hard times, and most of the residents had left years before. That was something that made him feel better about the evacuations, because it meant there was fewer refugees in Idaho and his county to worry about. Then Jason Redhawk came in and sat down dejected and exhausted. I've got a problem, Walt. What is it? The tribe doesn't want to have any of the containers stored on tribal land. Hang on, I gotta change the word here. All of the tribes, or just the leaders. Most of them and most of the leaders. Even though they will have first access to supplies, even with that, they don't want the generator sets there either. What about your family? My father is having a change of heart. He actually agreed with your plan and argued for the supplies and said that they should ask for even more, but the council decided against it. So what are you planning to do with your family? Jason fidgeted in the chair. I was wondering about Bear Cave. Walt laughed. It's yours. It should be nice and clean still. The ventures were up there for Labor Day, and there hasn't been anyone up there since. Thanks, Jason paused. Jason paused in silence longer than he should have. What else, my friend? Don. What? Don was, well, wondering. Sarah and I are going to get married as soon as things settle down after the asteroid passes. Jason nodded. She was still hoping. Walt sighed. You know, Jason, there will always be a fond spot in my heart for her. She was my first love, but the tribal elders made it clear. I may be a very good and honorable white man, but a white man nonetheless. And therefore we were not to be, especially with the deal I made. I know, my brother. Jason used the phrase he hadn't used in quite a while. It's been 8 years since you saved my life, and we became blood brothers. In that time, you've been nothing but a good friend to the tribe, but they still hold your whiteness against you. But I don't hold that against your family. I know. Is there anything you'll need for Bear Cave? No, I have plenty of water barrels, dry goods to hold us through next fall. Let me know if there is. From the doorway came a cough. Chris, Walt exclaimed, how'd you get away from Boise? I heard there was a problem with some of the truckers delivering supplies, so I decided it needed my personal attention. Sorry about that, Agent Davies, Jason said. My people are sometimes still stuck in the past. Some feel it is a white man's trick to subjugate them more. I don't take it personally. I'm just trying to keep everyone alive. I'm glad to hear that, Jason sighed. So what's this bear cave you two are talking about? Chris Davy asked. It's a large, deep cave on the north slope, on the north side of the ranch, Walt explained. They can house 4 or 5 dozen people comfortably with cooking and dining areas, and 4 times that if you pack them in just for sleeping. What sort of access it has? 4x4 pickup with good. You won't take the family minivan there, Jason replied. What about a semi truck and trailer? You mean the containers for the tribe? Yeah. No way they can make it past the creek, Jason said. Is there any way at all to get some containers up there? Walt and Jason paused to think about it for a few moments. Then both of them said at the same time, tractor and hay wagons. Hay wagons? Chris asked. October 11th. Oh, okay, we're going to cut it off here at October 11th. I got to get ready for the live stream with Shadow Scout Swede in a little under 30 minutes from now. So we'll pick up on this tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock Mountain Time, 11 Eastern Time. And we will finish off chapter 6, and we will get chapter 7. All right. Until then, I will stay safe, take care, and keep adding to your preps. And hopefully I'll see you on my live stream starting up here in half an hour with Shadow Scout Swede, the Sofa Survivalist, World Prepper, and World Survivalist and UK Urban Prepper. All right. Take care, everyone.